The U.S. is set to release 172 million barrels of oil from its strategic petroleum reserve to help combat rising oil prices caused by tensions in Iran. The release, which will begin next week and continue for about 120 days, is part of the International Energy Agency's efforts to stabilize global oil markets. Energy Secretary Chris Wright announced the move Wednesday, saying that the U.S. would also replace approximately 200 million barrels within the next year to ensure the reserve remains robust. Currently, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve holds more than 415 million barrels of oil. This release is a strategic response to the ongoing conflict with Iran, which has contributed to volatility in the global oil market. The action is consistent with previous administrations' efforts to manage oil prices and supply disruptions. For example, President Donald Trump also authorized releases from the reserve during his tenure. The U.S. government plans to closely monitor the impact of the oil release on global markets and adjust its approach as necessary to maintain stability. The Trump administration has launched a new trade investigation targeting manufacturing practices in multiple foreign countries, following the Supreme Court's decision to strike down previous tariffs. U.S. Trade Representative Jamison Greer announced the investigation on Wednesday, March 11, 2026, under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. This move aims to examine unfair trade practices that could result in new tariffs being imposed on goods imported from countries including China, the European Union, Singapore, others. The investigation will focus on excess industrial capacity and government support in foreign countries that may give those nations' companies an unfair advantage over American businesses. Greer emphasized the administration's commitment to protecting American jobs and industries, stating that the process is separate but potentially complementary to existing trade agreements and frameworks established last year. The administration faces a 150-day deadline under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act to complete its investigation and potentially impose new import taxes. Greer noted that the investigation is part of an ongoing effort to address the economic impacts of the Supreme Court's ruling and maintain the administration's trade policy initiatives. Officials are considering various options to respond to identified unfair trade practices. Additional Section 301 investigations may be launched on issues such as digital service taxes and pharmaceutical drug pricing. The situation remains under active review, with the administration planning to bring potential options to President Trump as soon as possible to address the identified unfair trade practices. In a sign of growing diplomatic tensions, South Africa's foreign minister summoned the U.S. ambassador to explain critical remarks made about South Africa's domestic policies. The summons came after Ambassador Leo Brent Bosel III challenged South Africa's ties with Iran and its affirmative action laws aimed at benefiting black people during a business meeting in Pretoria earlier this week. The diplomatic rift between the two nations has been escalating since President Donald Trump returned to office, with the U.S. expressing concerns over South Africa's foreign policy and domestic legislation. Ambassador Bosel, who was appointed by Trump, raised issues such as South Africa's diplomatic relations with Iran and its land expropriation laws during his comments to business leaders. This has drawn a strong response from the South African government, which maintains that such engagements must adhere to diplomatic etiquette and international protocols. Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola emphasized that South Africa expects respectful dialogue and diplomatic conduct. The U.S. has previously made 5 requests to South Africa. This includes demands to distance itself from Iran and to change certain aspects of its affirmative action laws. However, South Africa has not responded to these requests, further straining bilateral relations. The situation highlights the ongoing tensions between the U.S. and South Africa over ideological and policy differences, with both sides appearing to seek clearer diplomatic boundaries moving forward. U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iranian oil depots have reportedly led to toxic black rain falling over parts of Iran. This causes environmental and health concerns among residents. Reports indicate that Iranian residents are experiencing respiratory issues, and oil contamination is visible on surfaces. This raises alarms about long-term health impacts and environmental damage. The toxic black rain is believed to contain harmful substances like hydrocarbons, PM2.5 particles, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, heavy metals, sulfuric and nitric acids. Environmental experts warn that the smoke from the bombings can also cause chronic health issues, including increased cancer risk, neurological conditions, cardiovascular diseases. Iran's Red Crescent Society has advised residents to stay indoors and clean hard surfaces to reduce exposure to deposited pollutants. This situation highlights the significant environmental impact of military conflicts and the long-term health risks associated with exposure to toxic pollutants released during such actions. As the aftermath of the strikes continues to unfold, officials are closely monitoring the situation and providing guidance to affected communities to mitigate further harm. The International Energy Agency has made a historic decision to release 400 million barrels of oil from strategic reserves, aiming to stabilize oil and gas prices amid global supply concerns. This unprecedented move is significantly larger than previous releases and follows rising tensions and supply disruptions in key oil-producing regions. The IEA's decision is the sixth time the organization has tapped into oil reserves since 2022. This includes a previous release following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Experts suggest that oil could start flowing to the market within days of the decision. The release is expected to provide temporary relief to oil prices, but is not seen as a long-term solution to underlying supply issues. Senior fellow Clay Sagal at the Center for Strategic and International Studies notes that while this action can buy time for resolving the current supply disruptions, it is not a substitute for securing long-term stability in oil markets. The focus remains on finding sustainable solutions to ensure global energy security. This move by the IEA is currently aimed at mitigating the immediate impact of price surges and providing temporary relief to the market. This week, Ukraine has sent troops to the Middle East to train U.S. and Arab allies on defending against Shah drone attacks, following formal requests for assistance. Ukrainian officials are sharing their counter-drone technology, which has proven effective in combating similar threats in Ukraine. The training comes after a series of Shah drone incursions in the Middle East, prompting a coordinated defense effort. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky offered anti-drone technology to the region last year, but the offer was only formally acknowledged recently. Ukrainian technology reportedly takes down over 90% of Shah drones at a low cost. This makes it an attractive solution for allied nations. Discussions for a joint drone production deal between Ukraine and the U.S. are also underway. This highlights the interconnectedness of regional security issues and the spread of military technology across geopolitical spheres. This collaboration underscores the global nature of defense challenges and the shared interest in effective countermeasures. The situation remains under development as the training continues and further cooperation is planned. President Trump is pushing for the passage of the Testifies Act, which would require U.S. citizenship proof and voter ID for voting, before signing any other bills. The bill faces significant opposition in the Senate and is unlikely to pass. The proposed Testifies Act, or Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, aims to prevent non-citizens from voting and increase election security measures by requiring states to frequently review voter rolls and share data with the federal government. However, critics argue that the bill could disenfranchise eligible voters and that instances of voter fraud are extremely rare. According to a recent PBS News, NPR Marist poll, 66% of Americans are against the bill. Democrats and voting rights advocates contend that the bill is unnecessary and could disproportionately affect low-income and elderly voters who may struggle to obtain required documentation. Despite this, Republicans supporting the bill argue that it is essential for maintaining election integrity. The Senate is expected to take up the bill next week. However, it is widely anticipated that it will face significant hurdles and likely fail to pass. Virginia senators have voted to end a projected $1.6 billion annual tax break for data centers. This sparks a debate over the potential economic impact. This vote, which could lead to a significant increase in state tax revenue, comes as the state has been a leader in attracting data centers through tax incentives. Over the past 2 years, data center investments in Virginia have exceeded $80 billion, creating thousands of jobs. The Data Center Coalition, which represents tech giants, warns that the proposed tax could halt further investment in Virginia. Meanwhile, supporters argue it's time to reconsider the benefits of such incentives. The tax break, which has been in place for nearly 2 decades, has helped Virginia become the world's largest data hub. The proposal to end the tax break has divided lawmakers and industry stakeholders. While some senators, including Republican Mark Obenshain, argue that the tax break is no longer necessary, others, like Governor Abigail Spanberger, are concerned about the economic consequences of repealing it. The debate reflects a broader national conversation about the economic, environmental, and social impacts of data center expansion. The state's decision could influence similar debates nationwide as other regions grapple with the environmental and economic implications of data center growth. Lawmakers have until Saturday to agree on and pass a spending plan, with the legislative session set to end. The move to end the tax breaks has bipartisan support in the Senate. However, it remains to be seen whether it will pass the House. Tornadoes tore through northwest Indiana and Kankakee, Illinois Tuesday evening, leaving fatalities and widespread damage in their wake. In northwest Indiana, 2 people were killed, while buildings were leveled in Kankakee. The National Weather Service confirmed at least 4 tornadoes struck the area, with additional damage caused by severe hail and flooding. Local authorities and emergency responders are working tirelessly to assess the extent of the damage and assist affected communities. In northwest Indiana, approximately 4,300 customers were without power at the peak of the storm. That number has since decreased. The storms also caused several injuries, with at least 9 people in Kankakee County reporting minor injuries. Residents and officials are currently focused on recovery efforts and ensuring safety in the affected areas. The situation remains under active monitoring, and officials urge caution as more details are gathered and assessments continue. In a significant display of military might, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his teenage daughter observed the testing of strategic cruise missiles launched from a naval destroyer. The missile tests took place on Tuesday, March 11, 2026, along North Korea's coast, amid ongoing U.S.-South Korean military drills. The missile launches were part of North Korea's efforts to showcase the Navy's strategic offensive capabilities and familiarize troops with the weapons. North Korea's state media reported that the missiles hit target islands off the country's west coast. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, warned of potential retaliatory measures against the joint military exercises. The involvement of Kim Jong-un's teenage daughter in these high-profile military events is noteworthy, as it suggests a potential grooming for future leadership roles. North Korea often responds to joint military exercises with weapons tests, as the ongoing U.S.-South Korean drills, known as the Freedom Shield, are viewed by North Korea as a rehearsal for invasion. The situation remains tense, with both sides continuing to monitor each other's movements closely. Jeffrey Epstein's former accountant Richard Kahn testified before a House committee on Capitol Hill this week. This provides new insights into Epstein's financial dealings and business connections. The hearing, held on Wednesday, March 11, 2026, focused on how Epstein managed his wealth and interacted with powerful individuals. This includes billionaire Les Wexner and financier Leon Black. Kahn, who now serves as an executor of Epstein's estate, revealed that he had been Epstein's accountant for many years and managed significant financial transactions. However, he stated that he was unaware of Epstein's involvement in sexual abuse and had not seen any evidence of it. During the testimony, Kahn detailed the financial ties between Epstein and several wealthy figures, arguing that this information could help explain how Epstein was able to operate his sex trafficking network undetected for years. The committee is continuing to investigate the financial aspects of Epstein's activities, aiming to uncover any potential connections that may have facilitated his illegal operations. Lawmakers are also reviewing a large volume of financial documents subpoenaed from banks, including JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank. This testimony marks another step in the ongoing investigation into Epstein's financial dealings and the individuals involved with him. The committee plans to continue its probe and gather further evidence to understand the full scope of Epstein's activities and the role of his financial network. Some U.S. states are considering higher taxes on wealthy individuals to address growing wage and wealth inequalities. Washington lawmakers are debating a nearly 10% tax on personal earnings over $1 million. Meanwhile, other states like California and Rhode Island are also exploring similar measures. The proposed tax in Washington could collect billions of dollars to fund free K-12 school meals, childcare services, eliminate sales taxes on personal care items. However, critics argue that such taxes could harm the business environment and do little to solve revenue problems. Chuck Collins, a founding member of the Patriotic Millionaires, advocates for higher taxes on the wealthy to help redistribute wealth and fund essential public services. However, opponents like Colleen Hathaway and Jared Walczak argue that these taxes could drive businesses away and are not comprehensive solutions to state revenue issues. Washington, which currently lacks an income tax, is facing budget shortages and is exploring ways to increase revenue through the proposed tax on million-dollar earners. The push for higher taxes on the wealthy is part of a broader trend in several states to address economic inequality exacerbated by the pandemic. While the tax measures have the potential to collect significant revenue, their long-term economic impacts remain uncertain. The debate over their effectiveness continues. Democratic lawmakers in Washington are working to finalize the tax proposal before the legislative session ends, with Governor Bob Ferguson indicating support if the measure is passed. The situation remains fluid, with both supporters and critics awaiting the final decision. Inflation in the United States remained steady at 2.4% in February, before the recent surge in oil prices following the conflict between the United States and Israel and Iran. The latest figures from the Federal Reserve show that despite rising food and housing costs, other factors kept the overall inflation rate stable. However, analysts are now predicting that the rising energy prices could push the inflation rate above 3% in the coming months. This development could complicate the Federal Reserve's decision-making process, especially considering that inflation has remained above the Fed's 2% target since 2021. The average cost of a gallon of car fuel in the United States has already surpassed $3.50, the highest level since 2024. The Federal Reserve had previously raised interest rates sharply in 2022 to combat inflation. Now, with the potential for inflation to rise further due to the ongoing conflict, the Fed may face pressure to adjust interest rates again to manage the economic impact of the energy price shock. The situation remains closely monitored by financial analysts and investors who are concerned about the potential for higher inflation rates and their impact on the broader economy. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano has erupted, sending lava fountains up to 1,300 feet into the air and causing a significant accumulation of volcanic fragments in nearby communities. The United States Geological Survey reports that tephra, which includes volcanic ash and other debris, has fallen heavily in areas of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, with the heaviest accumulation recorded at Yukahuna Overlook, where up to 7 inches of tephra have been measured. Highway closures and evacuations have been implemented to ensure the safety of tourists and residents. The eruption follows a pattern of volcanic activity, with the USGS continuing to monitor the situation closely to assess any potential hazards. Local authorities are urging people in affected areas to stay informed and follow safety guidelines. This includes avoiding areas where volcanic material has fallen. The situation is still under close watch, with officials taking necessary precautions to protect the community and minimize the impact of the eruption. A Los Angeles jury has ordered rapper Kanye West to pay $140,000 to Tony Saxon, a handyman who sued West over unpaid work on his Malibu mansion. The verdict came after a 10-day trial where Saxon initially sought $1.7 million in damages. During the trial, Saxon claimed West did not pay him properly and fired him unjustly. This leads to the lawsuit filed in 2023. Saxon testified that West required him to work in unsafe conditions and failed to provide adequate payment. He also alleged that West's team portrayed him as an unlicensed contractor who destroyed the architectural integrity of the mansion. West's legal team disputed these claims, arguing that Saxon was unreliable and that he had received substantial payments. They also presented evidence suggesting Saxon was overpaid and misrepresented the conditions of his employment. This verdict marks the first of more than a dozen lawsuits filed against West by former employees. This highlights the ongoing legal troubles for the musician. These issues include controversies and loss of brand partnerships due to previous public statements. The situation remains under legal review, with implications for further legal actions pending against West.